Tower Heroes has a lot of unbalanced heroes, whether too strong or too weak. In this video, I tweaked some of the Tower Heroes' most unbalanced heroes. Slime King is a boring hero. It's just not good. Karkit and Oddpaw outshine him in nearly every scenario, so there's no point in even using Slime King. To fix this, I buffed the status effects that the slimes deal. The level 3 fire slimes will deal 3 damage per tick. The level 4 slimes will deal 6 damage per tick, and the level 5 slimes will deal 8 damage per tick. I think this change is fairly reasonable, as the current effects that the slimes have are pathetic and barely change the gameplay at all. This new version of Slime King actually gives Slime King a purpose. Buffed! Nuki is just straight up underwhelming. You'd think that the crazy range would make it overpowered, but the super long fire rate just doesn't make it worth it. That's why I opted to make Nuki fire every 15 seconds at level 1 and 2, every 12 seconds at level 3, and every 10 seconds at level 4 and 5. This should fix Nuki's biggest issue, his inconsistent DPS. Buffed! Brutus is a hero that has never been good, being outclassed by Haze due to Haze's infinite range. But I'm putting my foot down and putting an end to that. To make Brutus better, I've decided to give the bees a completely new stat, making enemies bleed on hit. Bleeding works similarly to fire damage, dealing damage over time every second. On level 1, the bees deal bleed for 2 seconds, dealing 3 damage per tick. Level 2 increases the bleed time to 3 seconds. Level 4 increases the bleed time to 6 seconds, and level 5 increases the bleed time to 8 seconds, dealing 4 damage per tick. This might sound overpowered, but don't worry. In return, I've lowered Brutus's damage by 50% on every single upgrade. Buffed! Spectre, that ghost that I hate, is the best tower in the entirety of Tower Heroes, and there's no counter argument. He's way too strong. Without Spectre, you lose. No questions asked. This is a massive issue for Tower Heroes, and it means you're basically locked to have a dedicated loadout slot for Spectre. So, if you want to play solo, then you're likely stuck with the meta heroes. Because of how much Spectre impacts gameplay, I can't really change much, otherwise the whole game's balancing will be thrown out the window, and some maps will simply be impossible. What I've decided to do is simply raise the price of Spectre's upgrades. It now costs 1000 mana to place Spectre. Level 2 now costs 2750 mana. Level 3 is now 5000 mana. Level 4 is now 8000 mana. And level 5 is now 12500 mana. I've also increased the extra cost downside on Spectre, with a level 3 now increasing it by 7%, level 4 increasing it by 10%, and level 5 increasing it by a little extra 15%. I try to keep these changes reasonable, as I don't want to change Spectre too much because the game quite literally revolves around him, but I just wanted to make Spectre actually have heavier downsides. Nerfed! Jester is way too RNG based. So much that there's no point in even using him. I had a great idea for a way to fix this. I opted to add I opted to add a bleed effect to the jackpot. When Jester rolls, bleed on hit, all enemies would take 5 damage per second for 8 seconds. I also decided to decrease Jester's prices. Now it costs 400 to 777 on level 1, 1750 to 2500 on level 2, 3500 to 4500 on level 3, 5500 to 6750 on level 4, and 7000 to 9000 on level 5. Buffed, and I added a bleed effect. Just like a rap assassin. Fracture looks really cool, and I think I've made the best change to him personally, yeah. I've reduced his range by 75%. Why? Well, I want to turn Fracture into a melee tower. Instead of throwing gems at enemies, it now clubs them to death. In return, he deals double damage, and a now small 100% longer fire rate across all upgrades. He also does bleed on level 4 and 5 now, because his gems are red, and so is blood. Buffed!